This video was sponsored by PUBG Mobile, the mobile official app from, well, guess. If you want to find out more, stay tuned till the end of the video. Russia is big. What an observation. But most of that land isn't really populated. What we think of as Russia, populated by Russians, is really just the land west of the Urals. Past those mountains, the numbers plummet, wilderness takes over, and the only thing you'll find along your journey by train is the occasional Siberian, and at the end, alcoholism. There's no denying that Russia even owning this vast amount of land has affected history, giving them a leverage against their neighbors, or at least denying Siberia to those who might want to have it. So I had an idea. What if Russia never expanded into Siberia? Well, here's one scenario. But before we talk about that, here's some brief context. After Moscow effectively kicked out the Mongols, they set their sights east and west. Poland and Lithuania were the main problems at first, but after that was all settled, the Russians began to send expeditions east past the Ural Mountains. Up until then, the Russians never heavily invested in colonizing land past these mountains, for one reason: rivers. It's not like these are the biggest mountains in the world, it was simply that Russia was a land of rivers, and that was the best way to get around. The mountains cut off these rivers, which meant it would require more effort than just sailing on a boat to get to new lands. After the Golden Horde collapsed, Central Asia was fractured into numerous small khanates. The largest one to the Russians was the Khanate of Siberia. After sending colonists and Cossacks, eventually the Russians conquered the Khanate. This left the mostly empty land of the newly named Siberia open for the taking. This is like the United States a century later, expanding and exploring an unexplored territory and stomping on the natives that already live there, though scarce they may be. After only 100 years, the Russians reached the Pacific, and along with that, China. So what if Russia never expanded out east? This isn't going to be like the other video talking about if Russia never existed, where I mostly talked about Europe. Instead, I want to talk primarily about how the East and Siberia would be affected without Russian influence. Let's keep this in its own self-contained little bubble. If we imagined what Russia would be like if it was small, then oh boy, that's already its own butterfly effect. This, first off, isn't the most realistic premise. It wouldn't make sense for Russia not to expand out east. It's an entire continent of wilderness right at their doorstep. But if we want to guess why Russia want to expand east, perhaps they become too weakened by Poland and Lithuania to do so, maybe Sweden is giving them trouble. For whatever reason, they simply did not expand east, which in many ways just puts the Russians in a far more dangerous situation. One main reason for expansion wasn't just because of fur and exploration, but to protect the eastern border. After being invaded by the Mongols, you better believe they were making sure that wouldn't happen again. But in this scenario, they simply don't. An alternate Siberia without Russia is a pretty simple thing to predict. It'd be made up of a series of khanates and roaming nomads, just like it was before the Russians came along. There isn't going to be some major Siberian kingdom popping up anytime soon, and if there was, it'd be so far south it'd be closer to Central Asia. This is simply due to climate and population. Siberia isn't the best place even today when it comes to self-sustaining itself. It'd really just be in a limbo. And as it goes with land in limbo, there's always somebody else willing to take that land. So if Russia just gave up the opportunity to use this land, then who would? Oh, you already know who would. Japan has historically had interest in the Siberian region, but I doubt they take a massive chunk of it. Really, I could imagine a few scattered colonies along the coast used primarily for fishing and whaling. China already is incredibly large, but without Russia to push against them, they could expand their borders up north. Yet overall, without Russia, the land would remain basically run by the Siberians themselves, remaining nomadic, or in tribes. There's also the question of Alaska. The Russians were the first to colonize and carve out the region for their own before selling the land to America. Yet without their expansion, not only is Alaska never sold to the United States, there isn't a political entity known as Alaska at all. It'd be just absorbed into this timeline's equivalent of Canada by British colonists, if Canada even exists. As for Russia itself, it'd be a minuscule shadow of the one we see today. The Russians are paranoid of history repeating again with an invasion from the west, be it like Napoleon, the World Wars, the Cold War, or today with NATO. I don't see how this nation born from being invaded by people from the east even would want to take the chance again of another Mongol empire. So if you're wondering why the scenario is so short, not only because I like focusing on more specific topics from time to time, it's because some things are just certain to happen in history. The Ice Age was always going to end, the continents will always move, and Russia, if it existed, will always try to secure its border. Have you ever sat on your phone at the drive-thru or waited for a bus and just had the urge to battle 99 other players in the middle of a deserted Russian island, but you couldn't because, you know, you were out? Well, you're in luck because PUBG has a mobile game now. The completely free mobile app to bring that battle royale formula on the go. Play it at the dry cleaners. Play it in court. You can even play it while flying a plane. Please don't do that. The controls translate well to mobile as well as the graphics. You can even still team up with 4 other people in squad mode and other new arcade modes as well, such as War, Mini Zone, and Quick Matches. There's still the wide selection of guns you know as well, just on a smaller platform. So if you're interested in doing something on your phone other than looking at Reddit or making your mother cry, try it out by clicking on the link in the description. This is Cody of Alternate History Hub.